learners. This is Shalene Gali from BEd2V. And now for today's topic, we're going to discuss the heat transfer. But first, let's define what is heat.
Heat is a form of energy that can be transferred from one object to another or even created expense of the loss of other form of energy.
Okay, so now I prepared here a pot and I add water. So now I'm gonna put it here in the stove, and let's figure out what will happen to the water after we put or we open the stove with the fire. Now the pot becomes hot, and as the time goes by, the water began boiling. So the stove produces fire, and the energy formed into fire was transferred into pot. That's why the pot becomes hot, and because of the energy transfer, the waters start to boil. That process called heat transfer. Okay, so there are three forms of heat transfer. The first one is the conduction, convection, and radiation. When heating a pot with water, all three forms of heat transfer are taking place. Conduction takes place when the transfer of heat from the stove to the pot. Okay, so the water boiled by the process of convection, and the heat from the flame radiate in all directions.
But what are conduction, convection, and radiation?
Now let's define first the conduction.
Conduction is the process in which the transfer of heat takes place between the objects by direct contact. The key of conduction is direct contact. Here are the example of conduction. If you notice, the pan is in direct contact with the fire. The energy from the pan is the process of conduction, as well as the energy of the pot to the rice. Notice that the egg is in direct contact with the pan, as well as the rice is also in direct contact with the pot. So now let's proceed to convection. It is the transfer of heat by the movement of fluid.
Okay, so hot beverages or hot coffee is another example of convection. You know why? It is because of the steam coming out from the hot coffee, and is another form of warm air rises because of the heat from the fluid. Last types of heat transfer is the radiation.
Radiation is a transfer of energy from its origin to the surroundings.
Most common example of transfer heat from radiation is what we experience every day. It is the sunlight.
Like the alligators and the lizard, they use the radiation of the sun to warm their body. There are also radiations that are difficult to feel compared to the sun because of the lower differences in the temperature between the source and the object.
Another example of radiation is what we always use, especially in nowadays. So, our mobile phone, it's it produces light that made it radiate. So also this suffering, it produces light, and this heat transfer is what we called radiation, and it is very dangerous to our body. So we should manage of using this kind of things. So I think that is all the examples of the heat transfer and the three types of heat transfer. So thank you for watching, everyone. I hope you learned. Goodbye and God bless.